Annette Funicello died of multiple sclerosis shortly after she was choked by smoke. Annette Funicello was born Annette Joanne Funicello on October 22, 1942 in Utica, New York. She was the daughter of Italian-American parents Joseph and Virginia Funicello. When Annette was still a child, her family moved to Southern California, a move that would unknowingly place her on a path toward stardom. From an early age, Annette showed a natural charm and expressive personality. But fame was not something her family actively chased. Her discovery was almost accidental, reinforcing the sense that her rise was guided as much by destiny as by talent. Annette's life changed forever in 1955 when she appeared in the audience of the Mickey Mouse Club, a newly launched Disney television program. Walt Disney himself noticed the young girl's bright smile, sparkling eyes, and genuine enthusiasm. Unlike many child stars who were aggressively groomed for fame, Annette was personally picked by Disney, who saw in her a wholesome appeal that audiences would immediately trust. She soon became one of the original and most popular Mouseketeers, standing out in a cast filled with energetic young performers. Her name alone, simply Annette, became instantly recognizable to millions of American households. During her years on the Mickey Mouse Club, Annette became a national sensation. Fan mail poured in by the thousands each week, and her popularity far exceeded expectations. Yet, despite her fame, she remained grounded, largely due to the protective oversight of Walt Disney and her parents. Disney was determined that Annette would maintain a clean, respectable image, shielding her from the darker sides of child stardom. This guidance allowed her to grow up without the scandals and personal turmoil that plagued so many young performers of that time. As Annette moved into her teenage years, she successfully reinvented herself as a recording artist. Beginning in the late 1950s, she recorded a series of hit singles, including Tall Paul, First Name Initial, and Pineapple Princess. Her singing voice, while not powerful in a technical sense, was sweet, sincere, and perfectly suited to the innocent pop style of the time. Her music connected with teenagers who saw her as one of their own, someone experiencing the same joys and uncertainties of young love. Annette's next major career phase came in the early 1960s when she became the reigning queen of the beach party movie genre. Starring opposite Frankie Avalon, she appeared in films such as Beach Party 1963, Muscle Beach Party 1964, Bikini Beach 1964, and Beach Blanket Bingo 1965. These films, colorful and carefree, captured the spirit of American youth culture during a brief but memorable era. Although the movies were light-hearted and often playful to the point of silliness, Annette brought sincerity and warmth to her roles, grounding the films emotionally. Notably, Annette approached these films with a strong sense of personal integrity. She famously refused to appear in bikinis that she felt were too revealing, honoring a promise she had made to Walt Disney. This decision reflected her character and values. She understood her influence on young audiences and took that responsibility seriously. Her ability to balance youthful fun with moral conviction only deepened her appeal to fans and families alike. By the closing years of the 1960s and into the early 1970s, a subtle yet deep shift took place in her life, one that surprised fans who had grown used to seeing her as a constant presence on the big screen. At the height of her fame, when many expected her to chase ever bigger roles and brighter spotlights, she began to quietly step back from acting. In interviews, she spoke honestly and almost dreamily about a very different vision for her future. Rather than red carpets and camera flashes, she longed for a modest home filled with laughter, warmth, and the joyful chaos of children. She once famously joked that her ideal life included a simple house and 9 kids. It was a striking contrast to the glamorous image the public had come to know, and it revealed a woman who was increasingly drawn to the idea of family stability and normalcy over celebrity. As her priorities changed, so did her career choices. She became far more selective, signing on to fewer film projects during this period and allowing herself the freedom to explore life beyond Hollywood's demanding pace. After appearing in the 1968 counterculture film Head, she made a decision that would define the next chapter of her life. She stepped away from major film roles almost entirely. What followed was an extended break that lasted nearly 2 decades. An extraordinary move for someone whose popularity once seemed unstoppable. During those years, she lived largely outside the glare of the spotlight, embracing a quieter existence that aligned more closely with the personal happiness she had always said she wanted. When she finally returned to the big screen in 1987 with Back to the Beach, it felt less like a comeback and more like a joyful reunion. Audiences were delighted to see her once again, effortlessly slipping back into the beloved beach girl persona that had made her a cultural icon. The performance carried a sense of nostalgia, charm, and self-awareness, proving that her star power had never faded, only rested. Even during her time away from film, she never fully disappeared from public life. She made occasional warmly received appearances on television, popping up in popular and family-friendly shows that introduced her to a new generation of viewers. From the whimsical Pee-wee's Playhouse, Christmas special to beloved sitcoms like Full House, Growing Pains, and Lots of Luck, her guest roles served as gentle reminders of her lasting appeal. These appearances reinforce the idea that while she may have stepped back from Hollywood's relentless demands, her place in the hearts of audiences remains secure. Proof that sometimes choosing a simpler path only deepens a star's legacy. Annette Funicello's personal life unfolded with the same quiet warmth, loyalty, and emotional depth that made her beloved to audiences for generations. Long before she became known as America's sweetheart, Annette experienced a deeply romantic chapter with Jack Gilardi, whom she dated steadily before the couple married in 1965. Their relationship grew away from the spotlight, rooted in companionship and a shared desire for stability as Annette transitioned from child star to adult woman. Their marriage lasted for 16 years, a significant span during a time when fame often strained personal bonds. Together, they built a family and welcomed 3 children, a role Annette treasured deeply. Motherhood became one of the most meaningful parts of her life, grounding her during periods of professional change and allowing her to step back from Hollywood when her children needed her most. As the years passed and her first marriage came to an end in 1981, Annette eventually found love again, this time in a quieter, more private setting far removed from movie sets and recording studios. In the 1980s, she was often seen in the company of Glen Holt, a respected racehorse trainer whose life revolved around discipline, patience, and care, qualities that mirrored Annette's own nature. Though their relationship initially sparked rumors and curiosity, it soon became clear that theirs was a sincere and deeply supportive bond. They married in 1986, and Glen remained by Annette's side through the most challenging years of her life, including her long and courageous battle with multiple sclerosis. Their marriage lasted until her death in 2013, marked by devotion, mutual respect, and unwavering companionship. Beyond romance and marriage, Annette's life was enriched by friendships that spanned decades and went beyond fame. One of her closest and most lasting friendships was with fellow actor and singer Shelley Fabares. Their bond, formed in the early days of their careers, grew stronger with time and became a source of comfort, laughter, and understanding. Shelley remained a trusted confidant throughout Annette's life, standing by her through triumphs and trials alike. Annette also shared a particularly tender connection with fellow Mouseketeer Lonnie Burr. Their friendship was born during the innocent formative years of the Mickey Mouse Club, and it carried a special place in Annette's heart. In later interviews, she fondly recalled Lonnie as her first boyfriend, a sweet and nostalgic memory from a time when life was simpler and love was unburdened by adulthood's complexities. That early romance, gentle and sincere, reflected the genuine spirit Annette never lost. Annette Funicello's final years were marked by extraordinary courage, quiet dignity, and a body weakened by a long, relentless illness that ultimately claimed her life. Best remembered as America's sweetheart from the Mickey Mouse Club and her Sunny Beach movie years, Annette's last chapter was far removed from the bright lights of Hollywood. She died on April 8, 2013 at the age of 70 after decades of battling multiple sclerosis, a disease that steadily robbed her of mobility, independence, and physical strength. In the months before her death, her already fragile health was further hurt by a terrifying incident in which she was overcome by smoke in a household fire, an event that many believe sped up her physical decline. Annette had been diagnosed with multiple sclerosis in the late 1980s, though she kept it private for several years, hoping to shield her family and preserve her sense of normalcy. When she finally chose to speak openly about her condition, she did so with remarkable honesty and grace. "I'm not ashamed of having MS," she once said. "It's just something that happened to me, and I'm dealing with it the best way I can." Over time, the disease got worse relentlessly. She eventually lost the ability to walk, speak clearly, and perform even the simplest daily tasks without help. Yet, even as her body weakened, her spirit remained strikingly strong. In 2011, Annette experienced a frightening and life-threatening ordeal when a fire broke out in her home. She was choked by smoke and had to be rescued, an incident that deeply alarmed her family and friends. Although she survived the immediate danger, the effects of smoke inhalation placed enormous strain on her already compromised breathing and nervous systems. For someone living with advanced multiple sclerosis, any additional physical trauma could be devastating. While MS remained the underlying disease that ultimately caused her death, those close to her believed that the smoke exposure further weakened her body and made recovery increasingly difficult. Despite her suffering, Annette never lost her warmth or sense of perspective. She often spoke about faith, gratitude, and acceptance even in the face of relentless decline. "I don't wake up every day and say, 'Oh my God, I have MS,'" she once reflected. "I wake up and say, 'Thank you, Lord, for giving me another day.'" These words capture the essence of how she lived her final years, not with bitterness or despair, but with humility and quiet strength. By the time of her passing, Annette Funicello had long since stepped away from public life, but her influence lasted. She had become an inspiration to countless people living with chronic illness, showing that dignity and hope could coexist with pain and limitation. Her death was officially attributed to complications of multiple sclerosis. Yet, it was widely understood that the combined toll of years of illness made worse by the trauma of smoke choking left her body unable to continue. Annette's life, from her radiant youth to her brave final days, told a complete and deeply human story. She faced her illness not as a fallen star, but as a woman determined to meet hardship with grace. In her own words, "Life doesn't always turn out the way you plan, but you do the best you can with what you're given." That quiet wisdom remains one of her greatest legacies long after the applause faded and the curtain finally fell. In the end, Annette Funicello's life and death stand as a touching reminder of both the fragility and the strength of the human spirit. Once the bright smiling face of American innocence, she spent her final decades facing a relentless illness that slowly stripped away her physical independence, but never her dignity or grace. Multiple sclerosis trapped her body, robbed her of her speech, and narrowed her world. Yet, it could not erase the warmth, humor, and strength that had defined her since childhood. The tragic circumstances surrounding her final days when smoke inhalation further hurt an already fragile body underscore how vulnerable she had become and how cruelly fate added to her suffering at the very end. Still, Annette did not pass as a victim of tragedy alone. She passed as a woman who faced extraordinary hardship with courage, faith, and quiet perseverance. Her death marked the close of a life that had brought joy to millions and inspiration to countless others living with chronic illness. Today, she is remembered not only for her iconic roles and radiant smile, but for the bravery with which she endured unimaginable hardship, leaving behind a legacy defined by compassion, strength, and lasting humanity.